Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to Opinions, another edition of Opinions on Monday. And we have a great show lined up for you today. You know, it's election time in the city of Chicago, in the county of Cook, in the state of Illinois. And you know, when it's election time, you have to study your candidate. So today, we got great information just for you. My name is Katie Lowe. And I'd like to welcome you to Rhythm Flow Radio right here on Meta Facebook Live, YouTube, and Spreaker. And today's show is Opinions, and your host is Opinionated Lorie Williams. And before I introduce you to the host, I'd like to remind you that today's show is sponsored by none other than my friends at Oval Cleaning. Oval Cleaning Inc., a professional cleaning service. Oval Cleaning Inc. for all your cleaning needs. Just 1 second. That's Oval Cleaning Inc. for all your cleaning needs. Carpet, windows, floors, and more, commercial, residential, and post construction. Call my buddies Mike or Steve at 708 528 6825. That's 708 528 6825. That's Oval Cleaning for all your cleaning needs. And now, here's Lorie Williams.
Hey, hey. There we go. Welcome to Opinions, Livestream and Podcast. Thank you, Katie Lowe. So today we actually have a special show for you. It won't be our usual panel, but we have a special treat. We have attorney Maria M. Barlow on the show, and she is the candidate for Cook County, or one of the candidates for Cook County Judge. And I'll give you a little bit of background on Attorney Barlow. Um, she is the principal attorney at Barlow Law Firm, LLC. She provides affordable professional legal representation to a diverse community of clients in need. Her practice focuses on estate planning, family law, concealed carry, self-defense, and personal injury. Maria was born and raised in Chicago, where she completed her undergraduate degree at Northeastern Illinois University, and she graduated cum laude. And after obtaining her undergraduate degree, she went on to attend John Marshall Law School. During her time at the school, she served as both president for the Black Law Students Association and then also for the Public Interest Law Council. And she has also served as vice president of the Criminal Law Society. Maria is also appointed by the governor of Illinois Healthcare and Family Services Child Support Advisory Committee, where she's a member, and University of Illinois Extension Council Chair 2021 to 2022. She has a very extensive awards and recognition. Demoiselle de Femme, 40 Under 40 Women Professional Awards, Chicago Defender Women of Excellence recipient, and also Super Lawyers Rising Star Award. So just really a fantastic background. So I'd like to bring onto the screen attorney Maria M. Barlow.
Hi.
Hey, Maria.
How are you, ladies?
Great.
I see one person. How are you?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Happy Monday.
Yes, we'll see. So far, so good though. It's a little cold, but good nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, I think what happened is that people got a little bit spoiled. Was it 2 weeks ago? We had like 90-degree weather. And I think they thought, oh yeah, summer is here. But then they forgot that one little thing. This is Chicago, not Atlanta. So normally it's not in the 90s in May. Like I remember it being cold on Memorial Day usually, like when we're trying to barbecue out and everything, and it's usually you're wearing your jacket or it rains or something like that. So
it's always hit or miss. Could be 80, could be 8.
Yep, that is so true. So hey, well, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on. And yeah, I mean, you just have a really amazing background, and you've done so much. Like I told you before when we talked, I don't want to ask you your age, but I I gather that you are a young person that has done a lot in your time. So that's just wonderful. Such an inspiration.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. I struggle with talking about the things that I've done because I just do them naturally. And so, but one thing I've always done, I try to do everything young. While I'm at a young age, I try to just do it. I don't wait because tomorrow's not promised, right? So if I can do it today, I just do it today. I don't wait until I'm 40, I'm 50, when I get 47. No, I just do it today. If I can do it, I just do it today.
Yeah, that's very true. My mother used to always, God rest her soul, she used to always tell me that if there's something in life that you want to do, just go ahead and do it, because whether you want to or not, the time is going to go by. So you might as well have done something and made those accomplishments, and and it's never too late too, no matter what age we might think we're old, but there's always someone older, I guess, until you get to be the oldest person in the world, then maybe not.
Yeah. You know what? I have a big family. And so my oldest niece, I grew up with my nieces and nephews. So my oldest niece was killed right before her 21st birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. To gun violence. And so, that was very heartbreaking. It was very heartbreaking for me, but it also always makes me put into perspective that, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. Go enjoy it now. What am I waiting for? If I can afford to do it now, or I have capacity to do it now, I'm just going to do it. I'm young, and I, especially traveling. I went out of the country when I made 18, and it was such a beautiful experience. I knew I wanted to travel at a young.
Where'd you go?
Everything young. I went to the Bahamas and I went to Mexico.
Oh, nice. So you got the travel bug at that point, huh?
Yes, we traveled growing up more domestically, but that was my first international trip when I turned 18, and I just really loved it. I was like, man, I'm going to cruise. I'm going to go experience the world, and I've done that. I love to go and see things that I've read about in books and experience things. I took my mother to China for her birthday a few years ago, and we went to the Great Wall.
Oh,
and so I'm like, man, they say this Great Wall. Let me go see.
Right.
I'm the person I want to go see.
The question.
It was great.
Wow.
It was great. So, the pyramids, I got to go see about that. That's who I am naturally. So I spend my time making sure that I am making those experiences. That's the primary focus for me versus purses and shoes and this and that. I want to go see these things that they say are in this book.
That and it kind of we had a pre-interview, I would say, and you had mentioned about just have someone's perspective as far as what they've seen in life and how that kind of could affect a person. And one thing that, speaking of travel, I always felt like travel, that's something that really is important, especially for African Americans to do, because it really it changes your perspective on things, instead of just kind of seeing things just from a very kind of linear sort of like, okay, I grew up in Chicago or Illinois and this is my life, but being able to see how other people live, I think that's really important in our day-to-day interactions with people.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you this too, as a Black traveler, there's not, I see more now than ever before. But I will tell you, one of the funny experiences with China, just it's so very different. And when I was there, they would always come up to us and stop us because they don't see a lot of Black Americans, I imagine. And so they're like stopping us. They want to take pictures, and it's kind of weird and kind of, like paparazzi-ish too. Yeah. But the interesting thing, here's the most interesting thing. Well, one of the most interesting things. when you go into the public bathroom, so I use Navy Pier as my example. You go into Navy Pier and you go into the bathroom and you know that there's tissue going to be in there, right? Because it's a big popular place that everybody goes for tourism. When you go to the bathroom in China at their tourism places, they don't have tissue in the bathroom. You have to bring your own tissue. They also have what's called a squatty potty. So the squatty potty is not a regular toilet. It's like a little porcelain kind of hole in the floor, and you squat down. And so you really, when you leave there, you kind of value the things you have in America that you don't even think about, because you're like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine. So it's just a different experience. It's really good to go these different places and see how people live and what they're doing and their rules and their laws and things like that. Very interesting.
Yeah, I've been to China just only one time, and this was probably about, how long ago was it? Maybe about 15 years ago. And when I went, it wasn't as, even developed as it is now. But I remember those squatty potties. Now I'm thinking like, okay, I was 15 years younger then. Now I kind of have bad knees, so I'm just wondering, like, how would I, not to get too graphic, but how would I navigate that now?
Right. But it's something you don't have to think about, right? Because we don't have it, but you have to think about it there. Like, whoa, how do I make this work? So what part of China did you go?
I was in Guangzhou in the south.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my other life, I work in international trade. So I, do a lot of travel and all that. So at that time, it was a company that was a manufacturer for us. So I had to, visit down there. And this wasn't like the fancy tourist area. This is like all the companies, and, we were in factories. So I would imagine it was probably nicer, like going to, Shanghai or something where they have more of a tourist area. So this was pretty raw kind of an experience. So I would love to go back again, though, just to kind of see how it's changed. So it's probably a lot nicer.
You should go to Shanghai and go to Hangzhou. Hangzhou was beautiful. It's very modern. It reminds you of downtown Chicago.
Really? How long were you out there for?
We went for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, we went for.
Was that enough time to see?
Oh yes, because we went to 4 cities, and so it was definitely a lot of time. It was difficult though because of the time difference. It was really like you're up in the middle of the night because there's a 12-hour time difference. But yeah, 2 weeks for those 4 locations was good.
How did you handle your jet lag when you came back?
Trying to think if I went to China. So it was terrible. I'm trying to think if I went to China first or Thailand first. One of them was really, really, really terrible. I think it was China. I did not sleep for about 3 weeks. It took me it was China. When I got home, I would stay up late so I can go to sleep. And then I would still wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And so it was really, really bad. And then I'd be up for the rest of the day. And then I would go to sleep for a few hours. It was really, really, really bad. My friend's like, girl, take a melatonin. So I think after like 3 weeks, I took one, like, okay, you gotta lay down. And then once I did it, I was back on track.
Oh my goodness. Hey, that's part of the fun though.
Well, I don't know about that now. that was the struggle.
The fun in quotation marks, we'll say.
That was the struggle. So yeah, it was fun though. It was interesting.
Wow. So hey, so just kind of like looking at your background and so you grew up in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Yes. So what was it that made you want to become a lawyer?
Okay, so I told you I come from a big family, so I'm the youngest of 11. I've got 2 girls and then 8 boys in a row, then me.
Wow, 11.
Yes.
That's amazing right there.
Yes, it's 11 of us.
Wow.
So just growing up, we lived on the south side. My parents have owned the house that my mother still lives in the house that my parents have owned it over 45 years, I think. Same address on my birth certificate is what I tell everybody.
Wow. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yes, same address, same. You know how they do those challenges like, hey, what's your old address? What's your phone number? I'm like, I can't put that stuff. My mom still got the same number and address. So, but yeah, so just growing up, you have those boys, they get stopped a lot, frisk, stop, search, what are you doing? What are you, a gang? That sort of a thing. And then you see things like that. You see them getting slammed to the ground. You see, I remember my brother was pulled through the window because he made a smart comment to a police officer.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so you see people that you care about getting accused of false accusations. You see how people are mistreated, where you know, even at a young age, you know something about this cannot be right. Something about, you know, you walking down the street and being slammed to the hood of a police car. It's something about this can't be right. And so that made me want to go into law. That made me want to be able to speak for people who could not speak for themselves. That made me want to represent families like mine. And make sure that they were not being treated unfairly or being accused of things they didn't do and that sort of thing. It's so many different reasons, but many of them just revolve around my family, my childhood growing up. And it wasn't bad, but just so many of us live in a constant state of trauma where if you drive down the street and you see some young men against the car, you really kind of just keep driving. You don't think anything of it. And that's not normal. It's our normal. It's many of our normals, but it's not normal. It's not acceptable.
Yeah, and it's interesting now how I'm probably quite a bit older than you, and I remember before there were the, cell phone cameras and all that, and a person would dare not stop and even see what a police officer's doing, like if they're stopping someone or if they see them roughing someone up or whatever. It was a bit easier, I think, at that time for people to kind of hide and not, or officers to kind of hide what they're doing, and then for the community to not get involved because they're afraid of some sort of a retaliation. But now with cell phone cameras, I mean, people can catch these on video, and legally, I don't know the law on that, but I think it is legal for them to tape, right?
So you got to think about this too, though. In the area you grew up in and experienced this, if you ever compare notes with people that grew up in different areas, you'll learn that that's not normal. It's not normal to see that. It's not normal for that to happen. It's not normal for them to have that sort of fear. That something like that will happen, that they have to pull out their cell phones, or they have to be concerned about, being pulled out of the car or searched or anything like that. And unfortunately, it's our normal, but it's which is not a good thing. Which is not a good thing because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable
normalize
everywhere.
those things.
Right. It's because you're used to it, right? You just said it. Oh, when I grew up, that's not normal. I'm used to it too, but it's not normal.
It's not normal. Absolutely.
Right.
And what would you say, just as a Black woman in law school, how do you think your experience was sort of maybe different than, let's say, like your white counterpart?
One of the things you learn is the higher that you go in education and just in profession and things like that, you're still going to deal with the same discrimination and racism and mistreatment and things like that. So in my law school, I think in my class, in my cohort, I believe that there was maybe one or two other Black people when I was in school. I know that our school started to get more at the semesters after me, so I was happy about that. But one thing I learned is that I learned a lot of cultural things, ironically enough, outside of law. But I also learned that, I'm going to have to work twice as hard to get half of what my colleagues are going to be given handed. I'm going to work twice as hard to get half of what they're handed. And so because I knew that, I was prepared to take that on. It was hurtful at first, but it's such as life. If I'm to be successful, then these are the things I have to do. And the same thing, when I became a lawyer, and the same things right now, I have to work twice as hard to earn half of what they're given. And so, for instance, and you can ask many African-American Black attorneys this, we are always still referred to as the clerk and the court reporter and anybody but the lawyer. And I have been sitting at counsel table drafting a court order with 3 or 4 clients in that room that day and still asked if I am the court reporter or the clerk, despite the court reporter and clerk sitting where they're sitting. It always happens. And don't think when I go to criminal court, we aren't stopped for being the defendant, because we are. It happens. I've gone into courthouses plenty of times And I'm stops like, hey, you can't come in. I'm like, why? It says attorneys can come in. I don't understand.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you're an attorney? Or as sometimes I sit at counsel table with my counterparts, and I am the only one that is carded for my attorney card, as if I must look out of place.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Oh
it's such a shame. There was a recently, I want to say in the last 2 months, speaking of Black professionals being questioned, there was, I don't know if you heard about it, was a doctor. I think she was down somewhere in Texas, and I want to say it was I don't want to say which bank because if I'm wrong about it, but it was a major bank that she had received her sign-on bonus. I think it was like maybe $10,000 bonus, and she was going to put it in the bank. And do you know that they would not let her? I guess I don't know if she didn't have the right ID or something happened, but anyway, they were questioning. She was she was very young, Black woman. She was a doctor, and they wouldn't let her deposit her this bonus. It was like a big deal. I think maybe she was trying to get some money back or something like that, and they were just kind of sending her through all loops. And what a shame that we still have to go through that sort of a thing.
Yeah, but people have to keep in mind our profession doesn't change our skin. It doesn't change the perception. And so that's part of why I'm running for judge too. If you can see it, you definitely know that you can be it, right? And so I would like for you to associate me with being a judge and not the clerk.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that doesn't mean that being a clerk is not a great job. The clerks are very, very well loved in the courthouse. Okay. And so, but guess what? You should not limit my ability based on my skin to being a clerk when I am a lawyer and I can become a judge.
Absolutely.
And that's a perception that needs to change. When you see me, assume I'm the judge. Don't assume I'm the clerk or someone else. Or don't assume at all.
Right. Absolutely. Now, it's interesting. I was looking at your bio, and so you went right into your own practice, right?
Yes and no. So I did. I worked for the city for a while, and I did that while I was in law school, as well as a little bit of time after law school. So when I got a lot of credit, so I got what's called a 7-Eleven license, and I got that early.
Okay.
So my 7-Eleven license gave me the ability to appear in court. So by the time I graduated law school, I had hundreds of bench trials experience because I worked in traffic court and we could conduct the trials and things like that under a senior attorney. So I did that for a little bit of time. I also worked in some other city departments, and then I started my practice. So one of the things that I learned, I did not like the culture of a lot of law firms. I did not want to be somewhere where I was the only one of my kind that looks like me, things like that. And so I did not really like the culture as I went to interview in firms, private practice. The government office may have been a little bit more diverse, but that wasn't my goal at the time. But as I interviewed with firms, I didn't like the culture. So I decided I would create my own culture and I would work where I was comfortable and do what I was comfortable doing and help the way I wanted to help and not be burdened by, I have to do these things and I have to do these billables and I can work for myself. I can be comfortable with that and earn my living that way. I also got an opportunity to open my office near my home. I grew up in 60617. That's where my office has always been my entire career. And so I'm real big on things coming full circle. And so I knew I didn't want to take the train in the rain and snow and sleep downtown Chicago. So what better place to open it than on the South Side? We deserve services too. We spend big money on everything. And so everybody needs a lawyer at some point or another in their life. And so I opened my practice there. I left it there. I loved it. I love being able to, go home if I wanted to for lunch or run to the grocery store and then take it home and then get back to work. It's perfect for me.
Wow, that's amazing. So what kind of advice would you give? Let's say there's some, a younger person, maybe, high school age, and they're considering a career in law. What kind of trajectory would you recommend for them as far as like, even just being in high school and undergrad and all that?
Finish that school, finish that education. so funny story. When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to become a lawyer. And it's kind of funny because I was talking to a friend some years ago. He's like, Maria, you know what? You always said you were going to become a lawyer, and I didn't believe you. You became a lawyer. So, finish that education. So for me, so I told you I was the youngest. My brothers went into the union. They are union tile setters like my dad. One of my brothers went to the military, and so he works in a different area. But the rest of my brothers, one was killed to gun violence, but the rest of them are union tile setters. And so I was not going to lay floors. That wasn't going to happen. So I'm the first one. I'm the only one that has gone to college and has gone to law school. Wow. So in high school, that is the point at which I was in a position to have a little bit less support from my family, not because they weren't supportive, but because they couldn't help because they have not done it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so there were things that I had to learn to navigate so I can get where I was going. And of course, my family is always supportive, so I don't want people to misunderstand that. But guess what? You can't help with college if you don't know. So mm-hmm. that was something that I had to kind of figure out and navigate. Same thing with law school. I had to figure out and navigate. But the good thing is for me, just in my life, when there is things like that I need help with, somebody always showed up by God's grace and extended a hand to help me get to where I was going. Law school, same thing. When I went to high school, when I went to college, it was the same thing. I had to figure it out, but somebody was there to help me. Hey, do your FAFSA this way. Hey, this is how you get scholarships. This is what you do with work study, that sort of thing. So it's always a blessing to be able to finish, or get that help that my family couldn't give me because they don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. So it was a blessing to have somebody come take a liking and say, hey, I'm going to help you. I can help you navigate that paperwork or turn that paperwork in, that sort of thing. It's a blessing.
Yeah, that's good that you were open to it too, because sometimes I feel that we are given blessings, but we don't necessarily recognize it as blessings. So you were open to that help. So hey, so we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, I want to talk about just really, how we talked about before, that a lot of people, and myself included, don't really know how the legal system works or how the judiciary, like in the state of Illinois, because I know, every state is different. So just we want to kind of jump into that. So we'll be taking a break for our commercial for sponsors. So Katie Lowe, you could take it away.
Excuse me, Lorie, your mic is muted. Unmute your mic.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So we are back, and before the break, we were talking a little bit about really just kind of wanting to know about the legal system and the way things are set up, because you hear a lot of people debating on different court cases and saying what a judge should have done or shouldn't have done, and then also even at the time of voting, not really kind of researching judges and just even knowing like how are judges elected, how are they appointed. And you and I, we talked a bit about appointments and all that. So what I kind of wanted you to just to give us kind of a Cliff Notes version of how is the legal system set up in the state of Illinois?
Okay, so you have your state courts, which is your circuit courts for your counties, and then you have your appellate courts, which is if you don't like what happened at the circuit courts, then you go to the appellate court. So people know about filing an appeal. And then if you don't like what happened at the appellate court, you file an appeal, and then you go to the Illinois Supreme Court. And let me just add, we recently just had a historic moment where we got a Black woman, the first one in Illinois to be appointed to the Illinois Supreme Court. So that
Woo-hoo.
is, yes,
That's
that's
awesome.
definitely, it is. That we have a Black woman that's there. And let me say this, we have a lot of Black women running for judge in Cook County this cycle. And many of them are not running against other Black women. Like, I'm the only Black woman in my race. And so that it's a great thing. And it'll be a difference if we all win those seats.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other court that we have here that people are that most people are familiar with is administrative hearing court. And I call it court, but it's like administrative hearings where you have administrative hearing officers. And that is most commonly known as parking ticket court, because people go,
oh, yes.
Yeah. So everybody knows.
No, we don't like that court.
I know. So that's administrative hearings. It's not, it's under like the state courts and things like that. And they deal with parking tickets and high grass and snow and, those sorts of tickets people hate.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because it's and then you hear about let's say people with like associate judges and I guess they're appointed versus elections, and how does
so in Cook there's 3 ways. Okay. You can apply to be an associate judge. And so that process is you fill out the application when it becomes available, when there are seats open for associate judge, and they comprise a list. Everybody is on that list. So if there are 10 seats, then, there may be 300 applications from various attorneys. And then they, some people usually submit bar ratings. That's a different conversation. I can go into it if you want, but, they will dwindle that big list down to what's known as the short list.
Okay.
And that's usually maybe 20 people or 30 people for those 10 seats. And those people will campaign to the other judges that are elected judges in Cook County. And then those elected judges will vote on who should become an associate judge. And then they will have a list of who's going to be an associate judge now based on, that process.
So those are basically like judges electing judges.
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it like, I've come from the corporate environment. So, is it kind of like they report to a certain judge, or is it just the matter of how they're hired? Like, how does that work?
So everybody has a chief judge. Well, the chief judge is Tim Evans, but everybody has a presiding judge for their division. Okay. And so the associate judges are in various divisions. So they have a presiding judge as well. So the term for associate judge, I believe, is 2 years. And so every 2 years, you could be reappointed as the associate judge. Or you could run. Some people are associate judges and then they decide to run when there's an open seat. So that's another way that you become a judge. You run for elected office. Those terms are 6 years and then you're up for retention. So I'm running for elected office. I'm running for the Cook County First Circuit. And the seat that I'm running for is an open seat. Okay. The judge that was in this seat ran for appellate court because there was an opening on the appellate court. She won that seat. And so she left this seat behind. Okay. And so I'm running to get this seat so that I can, succeed her in it.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other way is appointment. So normally, so in the case of her, she left and she went to the appellate court. The Illinois Supreme Court can appoint somebody to her seat to temporarily hold it until the election happens.
Now, why wouldn't you go for, let's say, an appointment versus running?
That's a good question. I do not like to be beholden to someone other than the people that I have to service. Okay. And so for me, it became important to make sure that I am who the voters want to represent them. So remember, I told you I've lived, well, I didn't tell you this, but I lived in the first subcircuit my entire life. And so the subcircuits were created. So let me say this. You can run countywide, which is all of Cook County for a seat, or you can run in the subcircuit. The subcircuits were created to bring diversity to the bench. Okay. So you get different judges from different areas of town that are going to be representative of the population in that town, right? Or I'm sorry, I don't even want to say that town, that area.
Kind of jurisdiction, like
that area of the county. So you'll get different people from that area of the county that should represent or reflect what's predominantly in that county. I lived in the first subcircuit my entire life. My business has been in the first subcircuit my entire life. I spend majority of my time and money in the first subcircuit. So for me, I'm going to run right where I live, where I can represent the people.
That you understand the area also.
Right. And fulfill what the goal of the subcircuit was. Keeping in mind, you have to represent all of Cook County because you'll be presiding over all of Cook County. But there is a difference from someone who grows up on the southeast side like me versus someone who grew up in Evanston or in Lincoln Park or Logan Square and things like that. There are differences, even though we're all in the same. Well, Evanston's outside of the city, but you get my point. We're all in Illinois, if you will, but there's differences. There's always
so many nuances. So true.
Right.
That's one of the things we're kind of experiencing now, just with crime and all that. That there are these nuances of what happens, but now that there's this explosion of crime in other areas that typically we have not seen them. People are, alarmed, but that's a whole different story.
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And see, so for some of us, we're kind of like, yeah, this is what's happening. And other people are like, oh my God, how is this happening? So yeah, I mean, I did not want to seek an appointment because then somebody might feel like I owed them some alliance or allegiance. And versus me being elected, now my alliance and allegiance is to the public, to the voters. That's who I'm supposed to be beholden to. And that's who I would always want to be beholden to, the public.
No,
let them pick me. I don't want somebody else to pick me. I want them to pick me. I want them to feel that my position and my experience reflects what they're looking for in a candidate to represent that area that they live in.
No, I definitely get that. So now we were talking about a couple of cases offline, and one of them was the Jesse Smallett case. And just for the listeners and for people that have been living under a rock and don't know about this case, I'll just give the kind of background of it. So it's basically a Hollywood actor from what was it, Empire?
Hollywood, though.
Well, I don't know. Maybe in the Black community, I feel like we knew more about him. A lot of people didn't really even realize who he was, which is, I don't know. I just find that amazing. But I guess they didn't. But so he basically faked a homophobic and racist attack in Chicago. I think back in 2019, January. Heart of the what was that? The polar vortex. Really cold time. Anyway, they found him guilty. But so at the end, once they did the judge, and I won't even mention his name, a lot of people felt that he was very harsh in his, I guess, the sentencing, but more so, I guess, the way he delivered the sentencing. He was just very, almost like he was kind of chastising a child. So, so I guess my question is really not specifically to the case, but just kind of as an example, like, how a two-part question. How do judges go about determining, let's say, like sentencing? And then secondly, giving that sentencing, like how tactful do they have to be in doing that? Is it just, I mean, should it be like very mechanical or like this judge was very animated with it. So, yeah.
So as far as sentencing goes, sometimes, many times it's in the judge's discretion to how they sentence, but many times that discretion is also limited by statute. So for instance, you may have a charge that says that if you have done this thing, if you're found guilty of this thing, then you are subject to a sentence that is between 3 months and 2 years, right? And so now the judge has guidelines. Do they give you 3 months or do they give you the 2 years? So their discretion is within that 3 months or 2 years, right? And so it becomes important that when you are voting and when you're looking into judges, you kind of know how they align with things, because perhaps that judge may see something and decide, oh, well, you know what? This person should get 2 years. Because sometimes this happens. People have similar backgrounds and similar facts and same charges, and two totally way outside of the realm sentences. And so there's always a lot of public outcry when that happens, regarding sentencing. So that can be problematic, but it's judge's discretion, right? So you have to keep that in mind. And let me tell you this too, while I'm thinking about it. Totally unrelated to what you asked me.
That's okay. We're known to go on tangents on this show, so that's fine.
Okay, good. Because this is important. People always say that they're going to research judges. Sometimes you can't because they are associate judges. So you can't like research them to decide not to vote for them. And the other thing is too, many times when people are running for judge, they are not currently a judge. So I am not currently a judge. So sometimes people tell me, like when I'm out campaigning, they're like, oh, I'm going to look into your background. I'm going to look at, first of all, I ain't got no background because I never been arrested. Okay. Be clear. Second thing is, I don't have a background as a judge making rulings because I'm not a judge. And I think that sometimes people get confused about that when they're trying to do their due diligence. But it becomes important to know, you should be looking at retention judges and deciding if they're, whatever you can find about them aligns with what you want, or what you find suitable for a judge. But new attorneys, not new attorneys, but attorneys who are running for judge, you can kind of figure out, it's harder to figure out, but you should definitely go out to forums and tune in to shows like this so people can find out a little bit about that person.
Right. So it sounds like it's finding out who they are, not necessarily, like you said, there's no background, but just, are they a good person? Where do they go to school, or what do they believe in, or just things like that. Yeah.
And what work do they put in? What are their philosophies and beliefs? Because, and I'll tell you this, and I say this a lot. The bar, they have bar ratings, and sometimes people rely heavily on those. And and some people know about bar ratings and some people do not. And so sometimes there's lists that are published of candidates who are recommended or qualified or highly recommended. I did not sit for bar ratings because I have some judges that I have appeared in front of who have told me to shut up, who have muted my microphone so I couldn't object during hearing, who were found highly qualified and highly rated. I've had judges who tried to bully me into staying into a case where my client threatened me, who were found highly qualified and highly rated. And I can go on and on. And so I have a problem with that. And so I decided that I did not want to sit for those ratings based on that. And I think this cycle that many candidates decided that they weren't going to sit for those ratings. Not all of us, not everyone, but some candidates did decide that they didn't want to go through it.
Now, how does that work though, this bar rate? Because I've heard of it. And, I've looked at like, they had a recommend or not recommend. What does that mean? Like, what is the process behind rating someone?
So usually, and don't quote me on this because some organizations are a bit different, but sometimes they'll have you fill out like a big questionnaire, and then they will talk to people that you put on your list that can speak to your character and things like that. And so, and then the organization comes up with where they rank you based on whatever their criteria is. And so, a lot of people have watched the confirmation hearings of Justice Ketanji Brown.
Yes.
And so I have heard it is similar. I'll just say it that way. Again, I did not personally sit for bar ratings, but I've heard that it can be very similar. And so I don't,
It's very
I just
subjective,
don't.
right? I mean, it seems very subjective. I mean, you could, like you said, if someone has an axe to grind with you about something, I mean, they could totally sway it towards another direction that unfairly too.
Perhaps, or if that's your buddy, I can sway it the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I mean, that's kind of, I think, one of the I think the challenges of just, I mean, of our political system and even of the legal system, that we have these sort of there's always these groups of people that can kind of decide your future, whether it's not objective enough, I think.
Yeah, that can happen. And I think it's just extremely difficult to truly assess judges, because even you could have a situation where you have a really good and fair judge and the person does not understand the law. So they are upset that the judge ruled in a certain way. And so they think that judge is terrible, despite that judge literally following the law to the T. So it's very difficult with judges. And because there's so much discretion in so many areas of law, it's difficult. But guess what? Your discretion, some of it is probably going to be guided by your life experience and background too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's true. So you mentioned that obviously one of the major things that you would bring to the table is just has to do with your kind of geographically where you grew up, and where you live your life, and bringing that to the to the courtroom, and your just being a judge. What else would you say you bring to the table to for someone's looking to elect you?
So my experience in growing up in a very large family, my experience with being a South Sider, my work experience, I've worked in a bunch of different, even though my practice has been in certain areas that I've focused in, I've worked in other areas of law, even, in the city and throughout in the city and in private practice. And then my experience, even as a mother, all of these experiences are relevant when you get on the bench. My experience as a woman, my experience as a Black woman, all of these are experiences that are important to bring to the bench. In addition to my education, my legal experience, and my community service, all of those things are important, as well as one of the most important things for me is obviously fairness, but also remaining humble. You have to be in a position. And so that's why I said earlier, the clerk's job is important. Everyone has a role in every organization, right? The state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, every place you go, there is a role, and everybody's role is important, regardless of how much compensation you're receiving for that role. So the judge is probably very well paid, but they may not even be the most well-paid person in the courtroom, right? But their job is important. The lawyer's job is important. The clerk's job is important. The coordinator's job is important. The janitor's job is important. The sheriff's job is important too. Like all the jobs in that room, the court report, all the jobs in that room are required for that room to work, right? And so when you go into a situation like that, you need to know that even though I'm going to be the person that makes the decision, you got to be respectful of everybody here, because everybody here is needed to make this work. And so I know that there are situations where people feel like, oh, well, I'm this and I'm that. No, at the end of the day, we're all people, right? And so that's why, as a Black lawyer that somebody might look up to and say, man, that lady is a lawyer, I still get told to shut up like a 2-year-old in court during my job.
That's just unbelievable.
But it happens, right? And so you have to have somebody that is respectful of the attorneys. And just imagine, as a lawyer, right, being disrespected like that in front of your client. You have to have somebody that's respectful of the attorneys and the litigants. Because if you're disrespecting the attorneys like that, imagine the way that person is treating litigants who are self-represented and talking to litigants who are self-represented, who don't understand the courtroom lingo, who don't understand courtroom decorum and behavior that's appropriate for court. Just imagine, I'm objecting. I'm not just talking out of turn. I'm legitimately objecting during a hearing. And the judge tells me to shut up and then mutes my mic so I can't object anymore. Because she said she had somewhere to be that day and she's not going to be here all day.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
It's almost like she thinks that she was appointed God. And I think that, I think you see this in judges. I think you see this in some police officers. Of course, not all of them. I definitely respect the police. But I think that when people are in a position of authority, sometimes it can go to their head.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But that's why when you're in a position, so let me tell you this. And I don't tell too many people this, but I took martial arts like my whole life growing up. And so one of the things they teach you is discipline. And so when you are in a position that you can do something bad, you're usually in a position to do something good too, right? And so as a judge, you have the authority to lock this person up or send this person to get rehabilitated into a program because they need help, or send them for evaluation because they might have mental issues. You have authority and ability to do that. So you have to use those kitten gloves to make sure you're making the correct decisions, because you are impacting people's lives, not just that person in front of you. There might be children, husbands, wives, parents, many, many people whose lives you're going to affect when you make rulings. So it's important to decide, okay, am I going to wield this gavel for good, or am I going to do it for bad? Because I can.
Absolutely. And, I know this is something you can't like politically just kind of talk about the politics of what's going on in Chicago. But so a subject that we've often debated on this show on Opinions really has to do with, just kind of some of the crime that's happening in Chicago with carjackings and a lot of the youth. You have minors that are out there, participating in a lot of this. And unfortunately, and I know that you've seen this, where they may not have parents at home. They might be a ward of the state, a foster child. Maybe their elderly grandparent is taking care of them. And, sometimes just being able to, you have some people that are thinking, okay, well, you need to prosecute these people and, they need to go to juvie, or, if they're over 18, go to prison and all that. But there's also that aspect of, okay, well, you can't throw everybody in jail. And just kind of to touch upon what you mentioned as far as, do they need to go to jail? Is there a program to rehabilitate them? Where do you think a judge kind of fits into that equation as far as helping society, instead of like, okay, having a prison full of people versus, having young people that have been rehabilitated and can lead a productive life and contribute to society?
So that's when it becomes important as the judge to get all the facts, right? So you have two 13-year-olds that both are accused of carjacking, right? You need to find out what's happening. You can't just decide, okay, they're both 13, they both carjacked, they both go to jail, or they both go home. You have to look at these people as individuals, and you have to get some information about them, their background, and their crimes, because just because somebody is accused of the same thing doesn't make the facts the same, right? Suppose one 13-year-old, had a gun to their head, which required them to do it, versus the other 13-year-old that does it for sport. Those are all important facts. So you have to make sure you have a judge that's going to I don't want to use the term investigate, but they're going to take all of the facts and all of the evidence before they make a ruling. That's extremely important, because one fact changes everything, right? One fact changes everything. And it could also be the thing that changes the judge's ruling. So you have to have a judge that's in position and prepared to listen, and be in a position and prepared to make a ruling that's different for each individual based on the specific facts of their case.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it kind of makes me think, though, of a judge as being almost like a fact finder, but without seeking out the facts having them being presented to them by, let's say, both sides? Would you say that
the judge is the finder of fact? They are the finders of fact. Unless you have a jury, then the jury is going to be the finder of fact, right? They're going to be making the determination, deciding the credibility of the witnesses and things like that. But yeah, that's what you're here for. There's a dispute as to whether or not this thing happened. And so now the judge is trying to sort it out, and obviously you get your common sense, right? You get your background and experience when you're making rulings, but you also have to rely on what comes into evidence, right? What is the evidence? And how do I apply the law to the evidence that's before me for this particular case?
Right.
And it's always case by case basis.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of pressure in making that.
I mean, I imagine that it's some, but I think that as an attorney, we are trained for such things. We're trained to listen because you have to be listening because you got to know what questions you want to ask your witnesses. You have to be listening because you want to cross-examine your witnesses accurate and appropriately. So you're kind of used to listening. I think that it's probably a different level of listening when you're listening as a judge, but you're already trained to listen. You already kind of know what you're listening for. You know the lingo and things like that. So, it's just a bit of a shift because you don't have a position now. You don't have a position.
So being neutral sounds like that's sort of the key to being a successful judge and
fair. You want to be fair. You want to treat people fairly.
Wow.
You want to make sure they're having their day in court, that you're respectful of them, you're treating them fairly. So, a lot of people don't even feel comfortable going to court. They're kind of, like, man, the judge treated my lawyer bad. I can't imagine how they're going to treat me. Or like sometimes I do consults with people and they're like, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm like, why? What are you nervous about? We're talking about your case. We're talking about the law. I'm just a person. You're a person. Let's talk.
See, yeah, it could be very daunting, especially, well, I guess it kind of goes back to what you're mentioning of, maybe a person, wherever they live, or maybe their background, and especially, being African-American, we don't necessarily have the best relationship with courts and such. So it can be very intimidating and not knowing how to, if you might say the wrong thing that will end up, get the book thrown at you or something like that.
Look, that's why you have the lawyer, so you don't talk too much.
Right, exactly. Unless you are a person that wants to represent themselves, and what they say, then they have a lawyer as a fool, something like that.
Client.
Fool for a client.
Yeah. So, I mean, that can happen too. But you know what? I'm going to tell you a funny story about me. When I started my practice, I was one of the things about me, I pay attention to everything. Like, I pick up on things. I pay attention. So when I started my practice, I used to go to court a lot, and I would watch different attorneys so I can figure out kind of how I wanted to be as a lawyer and that sort of a thing. So I watch different attorneys. If you're going to represent yourself, go to court and watch and see how court's conducted and see how it looks and how it is. Because the law school and the practice of law are way different from each other. Way different.
Wow.
So yeah.
We're so used to what we see on TV. I love watching any of the like detective and court dramas and all that. But the time that I've actually had to go to court, I'm like, oh, okay, this is not as exciting as what I saw on TV.
Yeah, court is not. I mean, you have interesting times in courts, but it's not like TV court for the most part. And and I'm gonna tell you something. I always say, like, that court TV. Those TV shows and they get their case resolved in 30 minutes. That just ruined my life because people are like, why I keep going to court? I'm like, this is not court TV. This is the court process. It's not like TV. It's not in 30 minutes. You don't get it done. This is not Law and Order. You can't get it done in 30 minutes.
So here's a fun question for you. If you had to, and feel free to not answer, but let's say, now I want to say like, I don't know, maybe early mid 2000s, when all these kind of judge TV shows, like Judge Hatchet and Judge Judy and, Judge Wapner, I think he was the first one. If you had to say, let's say of a TV judge, who would you say you most closely resemble in terms of, or the type of judge you would be, if you're elected?
You know what? I don't know the answer to this only because I don't watch a lot of TV, and I definitely don't watch a lot of court TV. But I'll say this: I have caught Judge Faith a lot of time. I like her because she's young and she's kind of like she has jokes, and I'm kind of like that. You know, you want to kind of
Yeah.
lighten the mood when people are dealing with such life changing and just real bad issues. You want to kind of lighten the mood so they don't feel all like tense and nervous and intimidated. So I like her, but I like Lynn Toller too. She gave really good advice to people, just as people. So I like that about her too. And then I don't know the judge name on paternity court. I like her too because she's real she's very compassionate.
Oh,
I don't know why
yeah. I
I don't
forgot
know
her
why I
name.
don't know her name. I have no idea what her name is, but the paternity court lady too, I like her too. I've seen some Judge Judy. She's stern.
Yeah,
I guess you got to be stern sometimes too.
she's a little Hollywood. I think she does says stuff a little bit for the shock factor, which she probably has the kind of personality of the judge you mentioned that told you to be quiet.
Nah, she. I don't even think Judge Judy that bad.
Oh,
And but no, I'm just trying to think of the different judges. Judge Mathis and then Judge Brown. You know, everybody's got their like unique kind of style.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have those two couples judges. There's a lot of judges on TV. Like even as I'm thinking about it, it's all these judges, Judge Ross and American Court and People's. There's so many judges. So probably a good mix of some of those ladies. You know, because you got to have that compassion, right? You got to have that compassion. You got to make sure you're listening. There's so many components to being able to rule over somebody's life.
Yeah,
this stuff is life changing. It's important.
Yeah,
so,
it's a very important role. That's for sure.
Right.
So we're going to be wrapping up here, but so I want to just kind of give you an opportunity to say anything else you want to say. I know that the election is coming up June 28th, is it?
28th. Early voting's June 13th, which is my dad's birthday. So people can vote on my dad's birthday for me.
Okay. And anything else you want to add and tell us about?
So for sure, follow my page on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, so people can follow my page. My website is Maria Barlow for Judge, the number 4.com. My punch number in the first sub-circuit is 191. And make sure you go out and vote. Make sure you tell your friends to go and vote. There is everybody says that they want change. Now is the time. I'm never one to complain about something. I'm one to go change it. I'm stepping up. So my expectation is that you will too. And punch 191.
Okay, well, great. Great. Thank you so much, Attorney Barlow. Maria, I can call you Maria. It's been a blast and very informational. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have you on the show again. Actually, you will be on Rhythm Flow Radio on the show on Friday, I believe. They'll be interviewing you as well. So
yes, me and some other Black women that are running for judge. It's a group of us. We're all running in different races, and so we can all win and change the look and culture of the Cook County judicial system. You guys just have to decide to have us. And Lorie, so let me tell you this: thank you so much for reaching out to me and having me on your show. I really appreciate you.
Oh, no problem.
Really appreciate you. Just spotlighting that I'm here, so no one can say, "Oh, I don't know you." I'm here. I'm doing interviews. I'm talking to everybody so that people can get the word out.
Yep. Send them to our page if they want to know more. And that's fantastic. Absolutely. Okay. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to collaborate again in the near future.
Absolutely. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Katie Lowe, take it away.
All right, I want to remind everybody you've been listening to Rhythm Flow Radio right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Spreaker. And today's show is Opinions, hosted by Opinionated Lorie Williams. Today's show is brought to you by my friends at Oval Cleaning. Oval Cleaning Inc., a professional cleaning service for all your cleaning needs. Carpet, windows, floors, and more. Commercial, residential, and post-construction. Call my friends Mike and Steve at 708-528-6825. I do ask that you log back in on Wednesday at 5 o'clock for a conversation with Brother Raymond as he talks about the events that happened in Chicago over the weekend, all of the crime. He's going to highlight that. Brother Raymond is a product of Cabrini Green, and that crime happened downtown. And again on Friday at 5 p.m., again, you get the opportunity to hear attorney Marie and Barlow again right here on Meta Facebook Live, YouTube, and Spreaker, and a host of other attorneys who are running for judge. Make a difference and don't forget to vote. That is your constitutional right. And thank you again for tuning in. We will see you on Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great evening, everybody.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.